Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third part of the Liverpoolretrogamer Game Room Tour. Today we're looking at my favourite part of my whole collection, PlayStation. Hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Firstly, let's talk about the three console boxes that we have at the top. We've got the PlayStation 1. Now unfortunately this isn't my original one, but I had to get a box for my favourite console of all time. I managed to find this at Car Bootle, if any of you remember that. And I think I got it for about £10 and I'm really happy with the design on this one. I just think it's a beautiful piece of kit. And then my PlayStation 2 box is my original. I'm so happy to have this, and it's a real gateway into the past for me, to be honest, right back into my youth. After that I've got my PlayStation 3 box, and that's my original as well. I got that on my 18th birthday and I'm still absolutely buzzing that I got it. One of my favourite consoles of all time, genuinely. I thought it best to show my PlayStation 4 collection quickly because this is the PlayStation episode. If you want to see that a bit more in depth, go back to part 1. Also, I think you should call out anyone that works at Sony. Why did you make the PlayStation 4 a rectangle when all your other consoles are squares? This is not good for collection purposes, boys. The first thing we're going to be talking about are my PlayStation 1 games. Now the way I have mine organised, due to spatial reasons, is I have them back to back, and I have my best or my favourites on one shelf, and then pretty much the best of the rest on the shelf above, which is the one you're looking at right now. Now with the PlayStation 1, I really do consider it still to be quality over quantity. Although I have a lot of them and it's definitely my biggest collection out of everything that I've got, I still think the PlayStation 1 has got so many great games on it that this just justifies it. This is only a small amount of the best that there is. And yeah, there might be some that you see in here that aren't your favourites, but there's stuff that I am at least interested in or have memories with, or I mean, I can go back and play it. That's something I'll say about all my games and all my collection. Anything that I have, I'm happy to pick up and play at any time. Now, in terms of recommendations, like I said, these are all back to back, so we'll start with the back row. First off, we'll go with Bloody Roar 2, which has some excellent sound effects and it's a real arcade classic fighting game. I just love it to bits. I don't know, there's something about it. I used to play it over and over again. Then I've got Dragon Ball Z Final Bout. Still remember my brother bringing this home for the first time. It's basically a Dragon Ball GT game, and I'd never seen that before, so I just couldn't believe how small Goku was, but I've got real fond memories of this game. Then I've got Heart of Darkness, which I remember playing in my cousins, and it's got the most silly and quirky cinematics you'll ever see, but the game itself is absolutely solid. It's really similar to Abe's Odyssey, and you know, you can't go wrong with that. Along the front row, I've got Pandemonium 1 and 2, which I was talking about recently with my N-Gage collection, and then I've got Spider-Man, which is one of those games that's a must-have for anybody's PlayStation 1 collection. It's in my opinion, still the best Spider-Man game to this day. And then, how could I forget Tekken 2? Well, Tekken 1, 2 and 3 are all brilliant, but in particular 2 is one I have very fond memories with. And I still remember playing it with my brother over and over again, and that's going to be a great video in itself. Arguably my favourite fighting game of all time. Very close to another one, which I'll speak about later on. Some of you may have noticed there that I had some American PS1 games, and I just thought I'd show you my collection here properly. The NTSC ones are quite weird because the usual games, well the regular games, sorry, are in CD cases, which I don't really think look that great. Silent Hill here is a good example of that. But the dual cases are actually really good, and I've got Metal Gear Solid here that looks brilliant and arguably better than the UK version of this. And then something else I've got to talk about are these greatest hits ones. Who in the right mind decided to have lime green with big red writing on it? It looks awful, but these are the cheapest ones to get, so that's why I got them. The shelf that we're going to move on to now is pretty much a mix and match between my favourite game of all time, Final Fantasy VII, and pretty much just me shrine to that. Some Final Fantasy X stuff, some Fallout stuff, and then like I said earlier, all my favourite PlayStation 1 games. And I've got some really good ones here I'm looking forward to showing you right now. Now, when it comes to my favourite PlayStation 1 games I have here, I mean, other than spatial issues, the main reason I have them on display like this is because these are the ones that when people come over, I show just to give them a bit more insight into why I love this console so much. This is my favourite system of all time. The SNES is really close behind it, but I just think that this console itself did so much for gaming and set up so many series. And I mean, most of my favourite games ever are on this, so I've got to have a display for my favourite ones, come on. When it comes to recommendations for my favourite PlayStation 1 games, I can tell you right now, almost every single one of these is going to end up being a video itself, so I guess you got that to look forward to. Now, if I had to start somewhere, I'd start with the Abe's Oddworld games. I remember playing these when I was 7 or 8, and it had so much of a lasting effect on me that I ended up getting an Abe tattoo when I was older. That's how much this game means to me. It's an absolute piece of art, and I implore you to play it, genuinely. And the remake is actually really good as well. After that, I've got the Crash Bandicoot Trilogy, number 2 of which is, you know, one of my favourite games of all time as well. And, you know, what else can I say about that? Well, what I will say about that is I can't believe there's a remake. I never thought they'd get remasters, but, you know, they're not as good, but they're still damn good. I've got Psychic Force 2 there as well, which is pretty much what I wish every Dragon Ball Z game was like back in the day. Highly recommend getting hold of it. After that, I've got Metal Gear Solid. Now, when I do a Metal Gear Solid video, it's gonna be a big deal, let me tell you. I need to get some figures for Metal Gear Solid as well, because number 1 is a game that I played over and over again with my brother when I was younger. I could go back to, pick up and play at any point. I absolutely love that game to bits. One of the very best ever made. And now we move on to pretty much the best games on the whole console, the Final Fantasy games. Whether it's Origins, Anthology, 6, 7, 8 or 9, you know, any one of them you pick up are amazing. The soundtrack, especially on all of them, is just top notch. I think they probably have the best, arguably, of any game ever made. They're just on another level. And I could just talk about these for hours and hours, but I'll leave it at this for now. So one game that I didn't mention there is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, anyone with a keen eye will have noticed that there and been wondering why I didn't mention it. This game is one of the very, very best ever made, and it's no wonder why it's so rare and sought after now. I couldn't believe how much it was going for when I first got it, and I actually got this at the same time as Chrono Trigger. Mate, I'm telling you now, when I do that video, it's going to be a special one, and if I could have recorded getting them at the time, you know, it would have been a great video, let me tell you now. Next on the shelf are stuff from my favourite games of all time. So I've got the Pip-Boy from Fallout 4, which is specifically went and pre-ordered, and one of my only other midnight launch games I've ever got, so I'm really happy I managed to get this. I've also got the Final Fantasy X soundtrack, which is really special to me, and honestly I can listen to it over and over again, never get tired of it. And then obviously I've got stuff from my favourite game of all time, and the game which I consider to be the very best ever made, to be honest, Final Fantasy VII. I know a lot of people seem to have something against this game now, but I just love it to bits. It meant more to me than any other game, and it's really had a massive part in shaping, you know, the person I am and my character. I'll go more into this when I do a video about Final Fantasy VII, but I'm just letting the record know right now, it's my favourite game ever made. So I've got the big box PC version of this, I've got a Japanese copy of the game, and then I've got an Extra Knight Cloud Strife figure, which I remember seeing in the back of magazines when I was younger. I'm going to try and have a look around and see if I can find the same advertisements again, but I remember trying to get it for ages, asking my mum to get it, and I think she did try and order it, but something happened, like basically, you know, back in the day ordering stuff from Japan was a nightmare, but either way, I didn't get it, but now I've got it, and I'm very happy to. So this is pretty much my PlayStation 2 version of the shelf above. However, on this one, it has a bit more of my PlayStation portable games, and it has a tidier figure as well, and just some other bits and bobs. So here's that tidier figure I was just talking about. I never saw this advertised when I was younger, but when I did recently, I just had to snap it up. I've seen it to do Maester Seymour and Una as well, and at some point I'd love to get the whole collection of them. I don't know what it is about having a physical, you know, version of one of your favourite characters. I just think they look great, and, you know, they make the game feel a bit more alive, I guess. Talking about the PlayStation Portable now, or better known as the PSP, I remember my mate Liam got this brand new back in the day, and I was blown away that you could pretty much get a PlayStation 1 on like a Game Boy. Well, that's what my mind was thinking at the time. It just blew me away. Now, in terms of the games, the Metal Gear Solid ones are top notch, of course. The Tekken one's not too bad either, but what this console's strength really is it's got a lot of really good RPGs on it. Now, I haven't got many of them, but I've got Breath of Fire, which is spot on, and I highly recommend getting hold of it. And I've also got the Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, which is a collector's edition, so I don't even know how I managed to get hold of this, but I'm really grateful that I have. And my favourite game on the console, which is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Now, the gameplay in this is not, you know, my favourite, but it's more of my favourite game of all time. How can I go wrong with it? I'm also pretty sure that the new game, with a new remake of Final Fantasy VII, is going to follow this formula a lot more than the old one. But I like this game, so we'll just see what happens. We move over now to the best of my PlayStation 2 games, two of which I'm really lucky to have are Eco and Shadow Colossus, which were considered two of the best games made in a console, and I've managed to get the collector's editions with the art cards and everything. I'm really lucky to have them. And I also, in that same job lot, got Res, which is the only game that really makes me want to get VR, because, I mean, you need to play that game, it's a really epic one. I've also got Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 there, which I was talking to you about earlier. That's one of my original copies, which I'm really happy to have. And speaking of original copies, I've got Metal Gear Solid 2 there, which, in my opinion, I know a lot of people don't like it, but whenever I do my Metal Gear video, I'll go a bit more into this. I absolutely love Metal Gear Solid 2. It just blew me mind when I was younger. And probably my favourite game in my PlayStation 2 collection is my original copy of Final Fantasy X. I remember my cousin managed to talk my brother into buying this, and he wasn't that into it, and it managed to pretty much become my game. And I'll have to do a video on this because I've got a lot to say about Final Fantasy X. The PlayStation 2. This console's an enigma, to be honest. It's the highest selling of all time, but the trash to treasure ratio is so small. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like all these games are special. I mean, I've got even more of these in storage, and I could still highlight almost every single one here and say they're a gem, or bare minimum they're at least worth playing. I mean, how many games like that can you say about the Wii? Probably a handful of the ones that are here, and these are double-sided. We're moving on to the best of the rest of my PlayStation 2 games. This one's double-sided as well, so we'll start off at the back. We got Blade 2, which is a movie I absolutely love to bits, by the way, and a game I just went back and played over and over again. We've also got The Godfather, which I'm lucky to have the Steelbook edition of as well, and it's one of the most underrated games of the console, I swear. If any game deserved the remake from the PlayStation 2, it's either this one or Time Splitters 2. Moving on a bit, we got the Lord of the Rings games, which, you know what, I'm contradicting myself, but those games could do with a remaster as well. They were absolutely brilliant. Two Towers especially was one of my absolute favourites. Then we've got the Ratchet and Clank series, which is still going, and you know what, Ratchet and Clank on the PS4 is still a great game. These ones are special, and you need to play them if you haven't played them. Then we got Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I bought this for my Christmas money years and years ago, and I never regretted it at all. It's a great game, highly recommend getting hold of it. Then, what I mentioned it earlier, Time Splitters 2. I have played this game so much on multiplayer, and yeah, I just can't recommend getting hold of it enough. Another one, just a notable mention there in multiplayer, is 007 Nightfire. Brilliant game. Me and my best friend Gregory used to play that pretty much every single day, and I implore you to do the same. It's good fun. Here we have my PlayStation 3 games. As I said to you earlier when I was showing you the box, these are some of my favourite games of all time and one of my favourite consoles of all time. And what a way to start off with these, my three favourite games on a console, and ones I'm really grateful to have the special editions of. Tomb Raider, the reimagining by Square. What a way to bring a series back, and it's made me a massive fan. Me and my mate Liam, I was buying them and lending them to him, and he was playing them, and we were just having a really good time talking about how much we love these games. I'm actually really looking forward to the movie, which I never thought I'd be saying, to be honest. Then I've got the Fallout 3 Lunchbox Edition, which I had an opportunity to get when I was younger, and I'm going to tell you that in the video another time. Now this game is arguably my second favourite of all time, which is a big shout, I know, but it's true. It's got a really special place in my heart. After that, we've got The Last of Us. I'm so happy to have the collector's edition of this, and what more is it to say about this game? Probably the best game in this console, and definitely in my top 5 of all time. Like its predecessors before it on this shelf, the PS3 games are back to back. There's not quite as many, but they are still back to back. We're going to start with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Now this is a game I got completely addicted to, and it was my first taste of online gaming other than playing RuneScape. I'm going to talk about that in another video, but I've got a lot to say about it, trust me. I do think, however, that it's the best shooting game ever made, to be perfectly honest. After that, I've got Dragon Ball Z Budokai HD. There's a bit of controversy about the music on this one, and just to say this, I was the only person queuing up the day this was coming out, but there was no way I wasn't going to get this game. Now we'll talk about Fallout New Vegas, a game which I love I love this game a bit. At first I didn't take to it as much, but over time it's just grew on me so much and I love it. It's just one of the best games ever made, to be perfectly honest. I'll talk about it more when I do a Fallout video, and I can't wait to show you all that. Then I've got Fight Night Round 4. Now I count this as a fighting game even though it's a boxing game, but I have put so many hours into this. I've got a purple Aki career mode on this. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Me and Greg have played it over and over again. Love the games a bit. Then the front row, I've got Resistance 1, 2 and 3. Now I remember seeing Greg playing Resistance years ago and I didn't really take to it at first, but then when I got my PlayStation 3 and I played number 3, which is comically called the brownest game ever made, I don't know what happened, I fell in love with it, and the whole series is brilliant, to be honest. I highly recommend anyone who's never played them to get hold of them and play them. I've only got one Spider-Man game as well, and I just want to quickly mention, why is it that Dragon Ball Z games and Spider-Man games are always so expensive and hold the value no matter what? I'd love to have them all, but I'm not going out spending £100 on them. I'll pick them up with a car boot sale sometime. So, a lot of you may have realised that I haven't got any loose cartridges in my collection, but that's because they're all here on the bottom shelf in these shoe boxes. So I think it's about time that we get them all out and start taking a look at them. There I am, hi. In the first one we got all my loose Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. I already showed you my advanced ones in the first part of the room tour. I just shown you one of my SNES games there, but that's because they're overflowing from the other boxes, and basically these just become storage boxes after a certain bit of time. Next up we got my loose Mega Drive games. Now most of these are actually my original from when I was a young lad, and I'm really grateful that that's the case. Here I've got Hyperstone Heist, which is probably my best game, or at least my most sought after game in this system. I've got a few more good ones there underneath the Game Genie, but the one that I love the most is Sonic Compilation. Had that when I was younger and still play it to this day. Now here's what most people would regard as the crown and jewel of the loose games, the Super Nintendo. Got a little animated Batman and Robin, which is quite a sought after game actually, to be honest. And here's me only copy of Zelda. It's NTSC and I'd love to get a PAL one day. So you can see here that they're all piled up, and I'm not going to go into them properly because there's so many there, but I will want to do a SNES episode. What we're working with here are my loose N64 and Super Famicom games. Now I said earlier I feel like I got most of the best games on the N64, and when you combine my loose ones and my box ones, I do think that strengthens the argument a little bit. What I've got here is a little Super Smash Bros, and I'm really lucky to have this and quite grateful. In terms of the Super Famicom, I think it's the most economic way to collect for the SNES, well, other than getting a SNES Mini, and I've got a converter which I'll show you in a minute. And here is said converter. I'm lucky enough to have this one boxed and it looks really good on the shelf. Now here it is in action. It's quite similar to the Super Game Boy player where it's a bit Frankensteinish. It requires a PAL game and then you can use any Super Famicom or NTSC game. Now the reason I've got this is because a lot of these games never came out in this region, and also it's a lot cheaper to buy them than it is to buy PAL ones. I recommend getting hold of one. Okay everyone, so that's the end of part 3 of the game room tour, and hopefully 3's been the magic number and this been the best one so far. Sorry I didn't go a bit more in depth on my loose games, but I'm going to talk about them more when I cover each console individually. Now making these videos give me a lot more experience, and hopefully the video is going to get better from this point on. I'm going to start with a few more game reviews soon, but just sticking to the game room for a moment. The main reason I made this video is just so really I could look back on the journey that I've had, because I used to have my games in bags on the floor and piles, and there was a point I only had like 5 or 10 games. I mean, the only reason I started collecting is because my original Mega Drive 2 broke and I replaced it, and then I started remembering all the games that I wanted over the years, and just games that, you know, I had and then I lost. Now, my advice with anyone who's collecting at the moment is just collect what you like. You never want to be at a point where you've got thousands of games that you're never ever going to play, because it's just a waste of space. And I always think that there's someone else out there that could be playing that when I'm not, sort of thing. In general, I'm really happy that you guys have even been interested enough to watch this, because it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. Now, I've got a lot more stuff coming in future, and like I said before, hopefully you guys will keep watching and I'm going to keep making it. Overall, I'm really happy with the videos, and I just hope that you've got some happiness out of it as well. So, I'll see you soon everyone. Peace.